What's up guys, it's your boy Enzo. It's a known fact that most players in Mobile Legends are not quite fond of playing tank and support roles. But those two roles play a huge part in winning games. However, despite these roles being very essential, it could get quite boring. I know it's a lot more exciting when you play carry heroes like Marksman, Assassin, Fighter, or a Mage. But today I'm going to teach you some fundamentals you must learn on how to play the most favored tank in the game, Grock. I hope after you watch this video, you would consider making it a role you can master so you could adjust and help your team win. Before we talk about Grock, let me explain first to you guys how important it is to know how to play all roles in Mobile Legends. It is an essential and crucial part of the game. If you're serious and you want to win more often, being a tank in the game is not a miserable experience for the most part. At first, I was not too fond of it because my roles are usually a fighter or a marksman, and it's different from being a tank or a support, but in some ways they have similarities. Like when you are a tank and a fighter, it would be best if you were aggressive to the enemies and protective towards your teammates. I did not enjoy it at first because I don't want the role of being a babysitter of our team's carries, rather the bouncer of your team. But when time goes on and I really wanted to excel in the game, I realized that if you want to achieve a higher rank, you must submit to the game and know almost everything about it, including learning how to play a tank and a support. Usually when you play solo in Mobile Legends, you would be teamed up with strangers or random players. And I think that's the most toxic part of the game. If you're a casual player who doesn't know how to play all roles, let's say you only know how to play marksman heroes and you've been teamed up with a player who also specializes in marksman heroes and doesn't know how to play any other role. Yes, I know, sometimes it works when you have two marksmen in your team, but let's be realistic. What if your team doesn't know how to make two marksman heroes work effectively? There's a big chance that your team will lose. However, if you know how to play other roles, that wouldn't be the case, since you can adjust to the team and fill the lacking part of your team's lineup. Also, you will have more chances of having a player that wants to be teamed up with you if you can adjust roles. Now let's talk about Grock. Grock is a very useful tank if you can utilize him properly. Knowing the preparations for him is a must. You have to know the right spells, emblems, items to use, and the exact time to use them. But before we talk about all of these, let us first discuss Grock's tasks and responsibilities in the game. Grock has a high sustainability and can help your team with damage dealing in terms of objectives. Grock is an excellent asset in a team when it comes to clearing minion waves, rotating, bush checking, crowd controlling, getting buffs, turtles, and the Lord, or even stealing them from enemies. Grock has a lot of skills that can deal a lot of damage that enables him to take some of the objectives of the enemies. He's also a good hero when it comes to ambushing or killing enemies. You'll know later how good he can be in these terms after I explain all of his skills. But for now, choosing a spell for Grock depends on your enemies and to your teammates. So first, for teammates. For example, your team picked Kimmy as your mid lane carry. Usually, Kimmy will pick a spell that can give her extra mobility like Flicker, Sprint, or Purify. In that case, your team will have a problem getting the objectives like Turtle and the Lord because none of your teammates will have their Retribution spell to ensure the last hit. If that is your team's case, I highly recommend that you pick Retribution as your spell for Grock. It will be an excellent combination of his first skill and last skill to ensure that your team will have those objectives. But if you have teammates that already have Retribution, I think you should pick the other two effective spells for him, which is Flicker or Sprint. Somehow you will wonder why a tank that is tough as Grock needs a mobility spell. Again, Grock can deal a lot of damage to the enemies and can even steal their objectives. Grock needs to have extra mobility spells to back him up when the time comes that his skills are all used when engaging through the enemies. In that way, you can bring chaos to your enemies. that are getting their buffs while ensuring you can go out of it. You can also use the execution spell to be able to damage enemies more and to ensure a kill when ambushing. You can also use the arrival spell because, as I mentioned before, Grock is good at clearing minion waves. Next, let us talk about the emblems. I have one particular emblem that I am using when I pick Grock. It consists of level 3 agility that gives you additional 6% of movement speed. The extra movement speed will be a significant factor when playing Grock because it will help him to be more agile when rotating the map by helping his teammates and ambushing his enemies. This emblem also has level 3 recovery that will give him a plus 16 points of HP regeneration, and that will be good for Grock, knowing that he will take a lot of damage from the enemies. In that case, he can regen without going back to the base. And this additional regeneration will be the right combination for his passive that allows him to regenerate when he's beside a wall or a turret. Lastly, focusing mark to pull yourself together for the talent. If you have a mage or assassin carry in the mid lane, obviously it will turn out to be an early ambush. Mage and assassin heroes are capable of killing enemies even if they don't have many offensive items, especially in the early game. I suggest that you pick the focusing mark as your talent to help them kill enemies easier. After you deal damage to any enemies, either using your normal attack or your active skill, it will help your teammates to damage more by 6%, lasting for 3 seconds. And with that being said, they will have more chances of killing the enemies. But if your gameplay is to engage more often, I suggest you pick the Pull Yourself Together as your talent due to its stats that will help your chosen spell to cool down faster. For example, if you select Flicker as your spell and you use this talent, the cooldown of your Flicker will become 102 seconds instead of 120. On top of that, your resurrecting time will be reduced by 50%. That being said, you can engage and engage and engage. Now let's talk about the useful items you can choose when you use Grock. First is the boots. This depends on how you play Grock. If you want him to move and rotate much faster, I suggest you pick Rapid Boots. These boots will give you an additional 80 points of movement speed. But if you want him to have extra sustainability, you must choose from Warrior Boots or Tough Boots. After that, I recommend you build Dominance Ice as your next item. This item will be an excellent complement because it slows nearby enemies' movement speed by 10% and their attack speed by 30% and grants Grock an additional 10% cooldown reduction. Aside from that, this has a stat that will give Grock 500 points of mana, 70 points of physical defense, and 5% movement speed. After Dominance Ice, you can pick from different defense items that will be a good counter for your enemies. Don't forget to buy Immortality because this is a crucial item for the late game. Now, let's talk about Grock's laning. There is but one lane that Grock will benefit the most, and that is the mid lane. Obviously, with the skills of Grock, he is a significant asset to the team if he will go to the middle with a core hero because of his ability to clear minion waves fast and his agility. He can roam anywhere in the map in no time and help his teammates to ambush, defend, or get the objectives. For further analysis why Grock is a huge asset for the team, let us discuss his skills. First is his passive, the Ancestral Gift. This passive skill will make Grock a little bit more agile and tough. Every time he is beside walls, additional points of movement speed, physical and magical defense, and regeneration will be added. Next is his first skill, the Power of Nature. Grock will charge his weapon, dealing physical damage to a nearby area of effect. The damage of this skill will scale with its charging time, so the longer you will charge this skill, the larger the damage. Aside from that, whenever he uses the first skill and he is beside a wall or a turret, he will become more immune to all crowd control skills. Next, the second skill, the Guardian's Barrier. Grock will throw a wall to a specified direction that can block enemies. It can also deal damage when it hits an enemy. Lastly is his ultimate skill, the Wild Charge. Grock will dash forward, knocking up all enemies in his path. If you use this skill, I suggest you hit a wall for extra damage, and it will lessen the cooldown by 30% of this skill. I think that's pretty much it that you need to know about Grock. And now, I will give you some tips to dominate the game using Grock. First, I encourage you to be always beside a wall or a turret when you use Grock. This tip is to make the most out of his passive. Go to the bushes while casting the first skill to be immune to any crowd control skills whenever there are enemies, so you can quickly go back and escape them. Next tip is that you have to make your team's rotation fast. Help your teammates clear minion waves as soon as possible. In that case, your team will be ahead to get those objectives like buffs, turtles, lord, or pushing towers. And for the last tip, try to invade your enemies even if you're alone. Try to steal their resources, buffs, or even the turtle and the lord. And that's pretty much it. I hope you learned a thing or two in this guide for the universal tank in the game. So if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and don't forget to visit yugatech.com/gaming for more news, tips, and tricks. It's your boy Edzo, and stay safe.